Hey, so slight change of plans here. This morning I wiped my hard drive by accident, so the video that I was going to make is just gone. And I've been working on this for about like a month now, so I'm not so pleased at all, but there's not much I can do anymore. Either way, I'm still gonna make a video on the topic because I still want to do it. So I've mentioned it before, but throughout the past year I've been in AP European History, and I took my AP last Wednesday. I guess I'll just give an overview of like the whole thing, because I know a lot of people that watch me might be taking it next year, or they just want to take it in the future, so maybe use this as a little bit of a guide. Always be prepared, because it's really bad if you're not. Like, even if you're not outlining, just be sure to have a general knowledge of what your lesson is tomorrow so that you don't drag yourself down. Because if you don't try to at least get like a general idea of what you're learning, it's not gonna go well for you at all. Read the textbook every night. It might be long and tedious, and like I said, you don't even have to outline, but just reading the textbook will be enough to get you introduced with the subject matter. If you need to take tiny notes on like some of the important things, then do that, but it doesn't have to be a straight up outline the whole time, because those are tedious and annoying and you have other classes to do. So you just kind of want to get that done as fast as you can, but still understand the material. Reread your notes each night. So like when you learn new material, go over the material from last night, because normally there's background in the subject matter for the day before in the lesson you're learning today. So to just kind of help you study along the way, it's very useful. Plan your time accordingly, because I'm lazy and I hate studying, but you have to do it, otherwise you're not going to do well on your tests. So it's like you kind of have to plan your time wisely. Like, don't start studying the night before. Like, try and study 3 nights before, because you're going to be thanking yourself later, because you're going to feel more prepared in general for each unit test and for the AP. Don't stress out too much, because at least my teacher, the curve, it's not that it's not forgiving, but you get better over time. Like, yeah, your first test isn't going to be your best grade. Like, my first test I got in the 70s, and then every test after that has been in the 80s or 90s. So you really just get better with time. It takes practice to get good at like AP-styled exams and reading a college textbook. Like, you don't learn it like that. It's just not going to happen. So I didn't do much, and I regret that a lot. I should have studied more, but my motivation was just lacking. But the way I did it was I took a practice test online. I used the Barron's website, because I did get a Barron's book. And I took a practice test in the beginning, and I saw that I had the most trouble with like the multiple choice. And so after that, I would just kind of go through my review book. I used the Barron's book as well as a crash course book, which I found a PDF for online, which I'll leave down below. And honestly, I would not recommend the Barron's book, because like, I'd say it's better for unit tests because they have a lot of specific information, but 3/4 of the stuff you're not going to need for the test. And really, when studying for it, you're studying the general information of specific events, like the causes and effects and like important people. Like, you're not going to need to know like the dates or every little detail, like what battle, what fire was started. Like, it's really not that bad. And when I went into the test, I expected like that the majority of the stuff would just be general. And it was, because it's a lot of like tying things up with a bow. They're not going to be like asking you super general questions. they do, but it's just not super relevant. They're not going to be like, oh, which king like did this or did that. Like, they're not going to ask you questions like that. It's more like, who would agree most with the statement above? And then you have to kind of make connections. It's a lot of making connections, that's for sure. So yeah, I would not recommend the Barron's book for actual AP studying. I would recommend it more for unit tests because some of their stuff is helpful. Like if you're doing a test on the French Revolution, they have like a whole timeline and like each thing in order, and it's helpful to see it like on paper in like a chart sort of. But I really, like for all my AP studying, I did the crash course book because it really got straight to the point. The PDF, which I'm linking down below, is a little bit old, so the test taking strategies are not going to be useful because the AP style has changed since the book has been made, but the course material inside is all the same because the actual curriculum hasn't changed, just the style of the AP exam. But for the most part, I'd say it helped a lot. It had like pages on important people, important diplomatic events, and they also went through each unit thoroughly, but also not super in detail, because a lot of the stuff isn't even tested on the AP exam. And the AP exam itself, if you didn't know, it's 55 minutes of multiple choice, 40 minutes of short answer questions, and then an hour and 40 minutes for your long essay question and your DBQ. And overall, I thought the hardest part this year was the multiple choice. Some of the multiple choice, like I understood, and then some of them were like super long passages followed with super strangely worded questions. And I know some people in my class were not able to finish, but I was able to time myself accordingly, and it worked out pretty well. I'd say the part that was probably the easiest for me was the short answer questions. 2 of the 3 I thought were pretty good, but there was one that had to do with art that I was just like, oh god. And also, yeah, I might want to mention, art is a pretty big thing on the exam. Like, you're gonna have to look at paintings and like analyze, like, what style is this, or what is this picture depicting? So it's a lot of art. I should have looked at art a little bit more, but thankfully it was only that one question. The DBQ this year was pretty straightforward and easy. I thought I did an okay job at it. I don't think it was that great, but I was able to get my point across, and luckily the concept was pretty general and I knew the material pretty well. The long essay question was also really good. It was like you have a choice of 3 and you can choose one of them, and they're from 3 different time periods in the course. So I chose the one that's modern because that's like the material that we learned most recently. So I found that to be quite easy. The other 2 weren't that bad either. Just choose it based on what you think you know the best. Don't choose the hardest one because it's not really going to work in your favor. Just do the stuff that you think is easy. It's going to make your life so much easier and you're not going to be as stressed. Luckily, I don't think anyone I know really tried to challenge themselves like that, because I would not do that during an AP. Just, I want it to be as easy as possible. But yeah, I'd say honestly, if you're gonna work on anything, work on your multiple choice, because that's where the majority of the points are, especially for a single section. The multiple choice makes up a good like half of the exam, at least in the score. So if you try to narrow it down and like focus on that, that would be pretty good, because if you try to get the most points on that, you kind of have a cushion for the other 2 sections. Try that. And yeah, overall I'd say if you're thinking of taking the class and watching this, definitely. especially if you're into like the actual subject matter. Like, obviously I wouldn't recommend taking an AP course that you're not even interested in. I took it because I was interested. I really liked it. My teacher was great. It kind of like unfolds like a storybook almost. It's like intertwining storylines that eventually come together at the end. And I don't know, it's just very interesting to hear it play out. It's also like you don't know as much about it because obviously like when you're in America, you learn a lot about American history, and it's just like you know a lot of that already. Even if it's not super specific, you have like a good idea of what you're getting into. But with European history, it's like I didn't know much about the French Revolution coming in. I just knew about like Marie Antoinette, and that's like it. But then it ended up being like a super interesting story. But yeah. So if you like the video, like it, and if you like me, subscribe. I know the majority of you are not subscribed. Consider clicking it.